genuinely, there was times I'd be driving around in my car and I'd rack up a line while I was like parked in the lay-by, and then it's disgusting. You can't. That's not okay. That's not. You know, I couldn't be further from that person now, which is mind-blowing because I did it. So the roof would be the execution. It could be a project, could be a relationship, could be health, like whatever you want to call it. That overall finished house is whatever the goal is you're going for. The roof is the execution, the bricks are the consistency, and the foundation's the mindset.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. So, my next guest on the podcast is a former touring musician, a recovered drug addict, a college lecturer, an Amazon best-selling author. He runs a non-for-profit organisation for young adults focusing on mental health, also covering mindset, entrepreneurship, business acumen and health, and was featured on BBC One. After running his previous business for 7 years, Beach Music, LLP, he lost it overnight due to COVID. Since then, he has bounced back to start his new business, Reform Financial, and today he joins us to tell his story. I have great pleasure in welcoming Lee Bridges to the podcast.
Geezer, thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful introduction.
Mate,
You've made me blush, sir. Well, there's some unblushable bits on there, isn't there? But yeah. Thank you very much. And what an awesome podcast you have, sir.
Mate, that's very kind of you. And look, I know when you sort of reached out to me and you sort of told me a bit about your story, I was so excited, obviously, about getting you on. And, mate, you certainly, like I say, you've certainly had a journey.
Thank you.
And look, just before we sort of delve straight in, I've got the synopsis on the back of your book that I'd like to read out. I'm going to read to the listeners. So here we go. So
I didn't write this, FYI.
Right,
this
okay.
is okay. Yeah.
So after a horrendous battle with drugs, a brutal car crash, loads of failed businesses, an assault, an arrest, a lost court case, and a whole shed load of other life-affirming crazy before finally getting it all right, Lee shows you exactly how to learn from his mistakes to get you to it, the turbocharged 2.0 version of yourself, quicksmart. Mate, that is some journey.
It's a bit Americanised, isn't it? See, the thing with the book, I have this struggle, right, Sam, where marketing's a thing, isn't it? It's a massive thing. It's so important. And you have those things when you create something or you do something, and then someone goes, right, it needs to look like that to get in front of these particular people. Sure. So I don't like the title of the book, I don't like the front cover, and I don't like the synopsis on the back. But it's done all right. So, we've got in front of the right people, I think. So, yeah. Mate, but yeah, thank you for the intro, man. That's so sweet.
Listen, legend. I'll tell you what, let's dive in now. Just tell the listeners a little bit about your story and where you sort of started. And
okay.
For it.
Yeah, no worries, mate. So, I grew up in a little one-horse town in sort of Suffolk, Essex border. So I was like half country bumpkin, half a bit of a geezer. I'm definitely not a geezer at all. And yeah, grew up there, and I'd sort of standard life, not rich, not poor, kind of, doing our thing. School, standard, everything standard. And I hit 14, and this kid at my high school, we had middle school down my way. You don't have that here, do you? No. That's a weird concept. Yeah, so we'd have primary, middle, and then upper.
Well, okay.
So 4 years at each, I think.
Yeah.
And we went to, when I got to upper school, that was like all the local middle schools all joined together. And there was this absolute legend, Charlie Bevan, rest in peace. He was a good friend of mine. He died really young, car crash at like 20, 21. It was like horrible, But he was a good guy, but he always had the chicks around him. And he was just one of those people that just exuded, like, just everything was cool. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out what it was. And at the time, I was super fat. I was really like low self-esteem, like one of those guys. Yeah. And I figured out he played drums. And I was like, that must be it. Idiot. Do you know what I mean? So I thought that was the reason why he was, he had girls around him. He was hanging out. People were cool. So I was like, I want to play drums. That's what I want to do. And then I just fell in love with it. I cannot tell you. I remember times when it'd be mates' birthday parties, and because we lived in this tiny little village, you'd have to go on a train or a bus or whatever for like a good hour or so to get somewhere. And I remember a few times, like I'd get out to where we were going for a party, and then be like, no, I need to go home and play my drums. And I'd turn around, come back home, and sit, and I just shedded them for years. I just loved it. And then was doing that for a long time. The problem with being a musician, or one of the problems with being a musician, is you have no business acumen whatsoever. Partying is like a normal thing which can turn into something quite volatile quite quickly. Yeah. Not for everyone, of course. There's amazing musicians that have managed to hold it together, but I definitely wasn't one. And then also, if you're on tours and doing the kind of stuff I was doing, then you end up being away for a long amount of time. It's quite hard to hold down decent relationships if you want to have a family, if you want to set up a business, if you want to just keep fit and healthy. It's quite an awkward. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So when I came back from tours, I needed money to pay my rent, so I started teaching at a college, and then did a lot of university work and master's stuff, a lot of lectures, different things like that, and I just love that as well. I love sort of. I love teaching, but my whole kind of vibe is to try and do it as if you're down the pub with a mate and you're having a chat and you're not being condescending or patronising. So like the book, for instance, like all of it, it's not self-help. It's not, I'm not a guru, I'm an idiot. The point is I'm so much of an idiot that I've done so many stupid things that I can be like, Sam, mate, trust me on this one, don't do that. That's a bad idea, do you know what I mean? But I suppose that's sort of me in a nutshell. Had a business, Beach Music, like you mentioned, which is awesome as well. We set up, noticed a couple of gaps in the market with live entertainment. Yeah. With the idea of, like I was saying, musicians never have sort of work is quite hard to keep. There'll always be someone that wants to jump in your grave, but at the same time, just having it's seasonal as well. So often you'll have the summer will be really busy, the winter will be really busy, and then there's nothing in between. So we noticed a gap in the market where we could approach like hotels, places like that, and offer them 52 weeks a year of entertainment. So we'd put in like a singer, a band, jazz band, DJ, stuff like that, cool. At a reduced rate. But then we could offer our musicians and say, look, we've got you 52 gigs every Saturday in this place, 52 gigs every Saturday, every Friday in this place, every Sunday in this place. Here's a salary, as opposed to
try just hustle, get a bits here and there.
100%, brother. And then COVID hit the entertainment industry, as you can imagine. And do you know what, man? It was the brutal part. I lost my offices and all my staff and everything like that, and that was hard because staff were like, it sounds so soppy, doesn't it? But they didn't work for me. We worked together, that kind of thing. But it's so true. They all got families, all decent people. Like
how many of you was there?
Not massive amounts, 7 maximum, but it's still But then, so the thing was, I know it sort of said, you mentioned it sort of went overnight. It would have been less quick if I hadn't have been such an idiot, because what I did was, and you can argue on both sides that this is maybe a sweet thing to do, but I didn't want to lose my staff and the thing that we'd built together. And, like I say, they've got families, they've got kids. That's important to me.
Yeah, sure.
So, the funds in the business bank account started going down because obviously we couldn't trade, like at all. It was the wipe out. And then obviously, like, I was kind of like, right, okay, I should wind up the business, but I was like, I've got a little fund personally, so I'll use that. And I thought, lockdown 1, okay, now there's lockdown 2, okay, now there's lockdown 3. So everything hit, and I got down to like 0 in my personal bank account. The business was bust, Wow. And then set up Reform Financial, which is a totally different thing in the back. But that's my waffle, mate. How are you?
Mate,
tell me a story, Sam.
Wow. Mate, I need a couple of bits I want to catch on this. So you say with the staff and stuff, 7 staff and that, you had to wind that down. That's a difficult thing. I'd done that in the salon. I remember having to close that down. Tough thing to do, isn't it? Like to stand in front of people and go, you know what, you haven't got a job anymore. I don't know how I remember at the time just thinking, there was a couple of things that went through my mind on 2 sides. One, I was, I was devastated. I thought, I'd moved my family down here, like me and Kelly had moved down.
Where are you from?
I'm from Essex.
Oh, mate, go on, lad.
We're in Essex. Yes, mate, the Essex twang. I can't lose it. But I'm like, so we come down here and I'm like, God, failed. I've let my family down and blah, blah, blah. The flip side to that, and I remember that day standing in front of the staff, and just before I went in to see him, I had a coffee in a shop in Brighton, because obviously the salon was in Brighton. I remember walking in that day, and I read something on LinkedIn that day, and it had something popped up, and it was the 10 top rules of success, and the first one was accepting and understanding failure. And that for me just switched a little bit, and my relationship, I guess, with failure changed a little bit. I went in, I felt that I could walk in that day. I don't know if you the same, but I felt I could walk in that day, and I knew that I had done absolutely everything to make that business work. It didn't, for various reasons, whatever that looked like, but it wasn't down to me not putting enough effort in and not being bothered. It was me working. For 2 years I commuted on a motorbike 7 days a week. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was, which was a challenge, especially in the winter. But
I was going to say,
yeah, that was tricky. But you get down and you go. So yeah, I'm just keen to see like your sort of thought process around that sort of time. Like what in your mindset? Like I've got to tell these staff, but then. What was your relationship like with failure at that time? Like, was it? Did you feel like I failed, or look, COVID come in? So, how do you plan in a business for, a global pandemic? We can't, can we? Right?
No, you can't. It keeps you on your toes, definitely. I mean, to answer your question, I suppose from my point of view, we were all so close as a little unit that they knew what was going on beforehand, and I've always been very open with people. Hearts on my sleeve kind of thing. And the idea was I can try and make this work, and it's my punt. At the end of the day, everything's a punt, and everyone's trying to navigate life. No one knows what the hell is going on, but some people act like they do, and some people act like they don't. Yeah. And for me, I'm definitely on the latter. It sounds funny, but I kind of the whole failure thing, for instance, like. I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's one of those. If you can, your level is your level. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. Yeah. Everyone loves to point the finger, but there's all three pointing back at you. So it's that idea of going, all right, well, Hannah said, have I done everything I can? Yeah. A really good way I always think to look at it is kind of like if. Like keeping fit and healthy, that is because you can see that there's an obvious right, okay, it's just been Christmas, I need to lose 2 kilos. Yeah. I know if I've done that or not. The scales tell me if I've done that. The mirror tells me, the way I feel tells me that that's down to me. If I see Brad Pitt with his shirt off, that shouldn't affect me at all. He's done his thing. That's cool. And so to answer your question, I think it was a real big struggle. And did I feel like I'd failed? Yeah, I suppose, but not it sounds funny, but in a very positive way. It was like I failed well. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100% makes sense. I think I'm very similar. And I think, look, there's the narrative around failure is, especially maybe more so in this country. Like I think it was James Dempster I was speaking to on here, and he mentioned about like almost in the States they sort of where bankruptcy is like a badge of honour. Like if you're not successful if you haven't been bankrupt twice before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whereas we're like, if you fail here, like he's not a good business person. He's failed, but like surely. If there's, and even for like my kids and stuff, I'd rather them try stuff and fail. And I think for me, look, I've certainly had a lot more failures over my life than any successes. And you look at it, but I'm okay with that because I'd rather, when I get to that deathbed, I look back and go, you know what, I'll give it a go. Didn't work out, but I'll give it a go.
Couldn't agree more.
There's opportunities there, then aren't there? And their experiences, good, bad, like the salon. I look at that as still an amazing experience, and as tough as it was at the time, and. Did I enjoy that journey in them 3 years? Not as much as I could have, because I think I wasn't the person I am now, and mindset was different. But it was still an amazing experience, and it brought me here. And
this is it. Like Cubs and Scouts and all that stuff. You get the badges.
Yeah.
I was thinking of this now, but it's like when you get that badge for I don't know, I can't remember any of them. Like sewing or collecting or running. The thing is, you get the badge and you've done it. It doesn't, that's part of the future badges you get, right?
Yeah,
it's terribly executed on my part. The point I'm trying to make is, that failure from back in the day makes today completely different. Do you know what I mean? How you dealt with that, what you did, everything that goes along with it. So no, I couldn't agree more. I think it's success is also one of those things as well. It's different for everyone. Everyone loves to be like, right, this is the level you need to get to. So screw you, that's your level. It's nothing to do with me. That doesn't affect and it shouldn't. But it does. It's very it's very hard not to get the ego involved.
That's really interesting because I've spoken to a couple of people about this, and I think for me it's the narrative of what success looks like, and it's the narrative. So ultimately, people go, if the measure of success, especially in the business world, is financial.
Yep.
And you know, if you're turning over that amount and you're making that amount of profit, you're big business and you're doing well. But I think I got into a conversation with someone about lifestyle business the other day. Lara Squire, she posted something quite interesting on LinkedIn. It was like, oh, I've been referred to as a lifestyle business, and what's that like? And what people were trying to say, and people referred to Fernballs as a lifestyle business sometimes, but what does that mean?
Which is an awesome name, by the way. Sorry, just to put that out there.
It's strange when you sort of go, the funny thing when you're, from a sales perspective, you ring up a company and go, hi, yeah, I'm Sam from Fernballs.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Legend.
Yeah.
Legend.
When you're known as Mr. Fernballs. Yeah, anyway, that's another story, I guess. But yeah, and it's just interesting to see. Yeah. It's really interesting to see that. Like, you know, what does that look like? So someone turns over 100 million and that's really successful and blah blah blah, but that person works every hour God sends, and they don't get to spend time with their family, they don't do the things they love, but you know, they've got this massive financial wealth and etc., Ferraris, etc., all them things. Whereas someone turns over 100 grand but does something they absolutely love doing, they, you know, spend time with their family, they do the things they love doing on a daily basis. What defines success? I guess that's where and I think the narrative is that if it's only financial gain and not purpose and what you're doing, then I think that's, for me personally, my narrative in my head changed a couple of years back, and when I went through a little bit of a low point, and I think that was mainly due to just changing that narrative of success in my head, what that looked like to me. Like, I was chasing that. I wanted to be that this time next year. Of course, I'm going to be.
It's chasing someone else's dream a lot of the time, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
That is exactly it.
I always think of it. It's kind of like I always think of autopilot. So you know that the idea of just like going through the motions, not really questioning anything, and also not sort of digging a bit deep inside yourself. The whole have a look in the mirror kind of thing, and I always, that's something I realised quite a while ago, is that I was definitely autopiloting throughout my own life. So my goals, my dreams, things that I wanted to sort of, you know, places I wanted to get to, were just on navigate or auto navigate from. It might have been the last thing I heard on the the TV or someone else has talked about, someone's marketing campaign, whatever it is. And as soon as you sort of step back from that and you're like, I'm going to start actually like driving this ship that is, you know, that's mine to drive, that no one else can control apart from me. So as soon as I sort of realised that, I still flip into it all the time, mate. Do you know what I mean? I'll catch myself and be like, hang on a sec, I didn't choose to do that. I just went through the motions, right? But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said there, where you can just kind of, you can very easily just get through life without living. Do you know what I mean?
That's a brilliant way of saying it. I think that's it. People do, and we've all got. And look, I don't expect. You know, we're not all the same. We're not all built the same, and it's fine to be that person that does maybe drift. If you're happy doing that, then that's unbelievable. Everyone's got different, and they've got their own things. But I guess personally, you look at going, like I said, sort of offline. Like, every day is an opportunity. Really, you look at it and go, well, what can I get out of it? What, you know, got 24 hours in a day. What can I do to maximise that and have the most amount of fun, I guess, and do things you love doing. And I guess we're all trying to get to that stage, I think, more than, I'm certainly chasing that more than I am the financial gain now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mate, I want to move on. I know we obviously mentioned in the introduction and stuff about obviously your personal journey and sort of battle with drug addiction and stuff like that. I just wondered, can we delve into that a little bit? Just talk us through that sort of period of your life. And
I mean, it's like, to look like, do you ever have those moments where you're like, I don't know how that happened. That wasn't me. That's not my ethics. Had got, you know, that's not what I'm about. But I did it. Yeah. And I must have, like, maybe I did it to learn something, maybe, I don't know, but, you know, I mean, I'm really open about everything, so, you know, there's nothing you can't ask, but, yeah, I ended up doing the drug that I've always had a real problem with, as far as, like, an ethical problem. So it was cocaine was the issue. I've always, you know, I'd have a couple of beers, you know, might have a spliff on the odd occasion, something like that, you know, back in the day, but I never, a lot of my friends got into sort of partying and stuff like that, and like I say, I was a travelling musician a lot of the time. I
suppose that's part of the. Is it part of the culture, musician?
I always explain it like this: is if I genuinely believe, with the best will in the world, if you lived in a crack den with no intention of ever touching drugs ever, but you lived there, and then one day passes, 2 months passes, a year passes, there'll be a point where you're surrounded by it so much that there'll be a thing in your head that goes, okay,
curiosity, whatever.
Yeah,
it looks
and
like,
just it being pummeled at you. I mean, I'm not going to go down this route, but look at COVID. That's 2 years now of every single day. That's all we've heard about. So that's what everyone's talking about, right? They could be talking about other health things, you know, they could, or whatever it is. Anyway, but yeah, so I had a little bit of a jaunt one time. It's one of those like months where I think my car, I had no money. My car broke down, a head gasket went. I was ill with a bit of a like man flu-y cold. And then a friend of a friend, wasn't a best friend of mine, but was always at the same places as me, and really good friends of our friends. Real bad problem. Committed suicide, and it was just one of those months where it was just crap. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those. And I went to a party, and one of my mates was like, "Oh, do you want a line?" And it was the first time, because I'd always said no. It's not my thing. I don't know if you know about the trade that much. It's disgusting. It is absolutely despicable the way that stuff gets over here. It's terrible. And I was just at that, you know, when you're like, screw it, you know, what have I got to lose? And I was honestly, mate, I know loads of people that aren't, but I was that guy that did one line, and then within about 6 months, I was doing about 200 quid, 300 quid a day, of which I didn't have, which I had to find. I did that for about 2 years. And the funny thing about it was, I think my mum's got a lot to... has had a lot to play in the way I am with this, because she's just such an angel and such a saint. And I'll never screw anyone over. Like it's like a whole. It's not even a mantra. It's just ingrained in me. I just won't. I can't do it. I can stitch myself right up though, mate. do you know what I mean? So I sort of spent you know, all of that time. I was there. There was, you know, I was going to say between me and you, but we're obviously on air. But you know, I was still lecturing a lot of the time. I was still public speaking at events. I was holding all that side of it together, and honestly, until the last sort of maybe 6 months of it, no one knew.
Really? Wow.
Even my best mates, you know, my partner at the time, like no one knew. It's just insane. It's funny how, and I got very good at lying, and that's a trait that I really don't like. I don't like that at all. And it sort of it spiraled in a way that was like, it was one of the ones you read about. Do you know what I mean? There's so many times it doesn't do that, you know. But yeah, man, it was a rank time of my life, mate, that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. And don't get me wrong, I didn't end up homeless. I did, you know, different strokes and different levels for different people. Sure. But for me, it took complete control. I couldn't think of anything else. I don't think I slept for most of those 2 years. It was just like tossing, turning in bed, sweating, you know, it's horrible. And that's really where the book came from, because I got to the point, because I was doing all my lectures, and I always tried to be really helpful with other people, not in that kind of soppy, like, how can I add value way, but genuinely, like, a mate of mine always says, a really good dear friend of mine, Richard, who actually works with Reform as well, he always says, always leave stuff better than you found it, and I love that concept. I really do. Could be something stupid, like, you know, your kids left the little cardboard bit of the toilet roll on the holder, and the bin's right next to it. Just pick it up, put it in there, it's a little bit better. Do you know what I mean? Just make the world a little bit better. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, the book came off the back of that, because I was trying to help out everyone else and doing an all right job of it. Like I say, I was just screwing myself over, and I just got to that point. I had my enough is enough day. I was like, I literally cannot do this anymore. Hit rock bottom, and then just went, right, okay, what do I need to do? And
when did you get to that point where you do hit what's that like? When you get to that point where you go, and how do you? I guess one of the things I want to move on to, but just before we do, just talk about that. But like, when do you get to that point where you go, I guess there's a crossroads where you can keep going down that same path, and that's not going to be a good path. But what is it inside you that went, I've got to stop this right now, and I've got to take this other path and get out of this? Like,
Really good question. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not 100% sure. I'd love to give you an answer there, but I remember there was some, and I mean, again, it seems so far from where I'm at now. It's actually, it's not. I'm not embarrassed to talk about it. However, the person I was then, I mean, things like, you know, there was times I'd be driving around in my car, and I'd rack up a line while I was like parked in the lay-by, and then it's disgusting. You can't. That's not okay. That's not. You know, I couldn't be further from that person now, which is mind blowing because I did it. You know, certain things I wasn't, terrible, but I could have caused accidents. I could have, other people's lives, and it's so bad. And it's like, now I won't even have a shandy and get in a car. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's insane. But I think there was definitely a stream of events where I had the ambulance out a couple of times from like sort of I had a little mini stroke where all my face dropped down. So it was pretty horrible, mate. But again, the other side of this is that it's very. I do understand when people are like, right, that's all self-inflicted, and that's like what a disgraceful person you are, and I get that. I really do. I would never think like about again. I think everyone's trying to navigate their life, and sometimes we screw up, and sometimes we screw up really bad. And ever since then, all I've tried to do is, I'm not religious in the sense of like I don't believe that there's one particular deity that I need to follow, or I try and take a bit from every religion and try and make my own mind up. But I do have this thing that plays in my mind where I sometimes think like, just say that you get to the pearly gates and that's what it is. And there's some mush there, and he's like, right, okay, we're going to weigh up all your good things, all your bad things. And just in case that's the case, I always think of stuff on a scale. So all I've done since that is gone, right, repent, like just do as many nice things as you can, try and leverage the fact that you're not there anymore. Hope that hope nothing like that ever happens again. Hope that doesn't happen to anybody else as well, because I would not wish that upon anyone. It's a terrible place to be in.
But I guess what mate, look, one, thanks for sharing that.
Oh, any time.
And I guess by people listening to that story, people may be in a similar situation or thought about going down that route, or whatever part they're on their journey, like just to know that I guess ultimately it's about a couple of things. One, taking responsibility for that, as like you are openly going, look, I fucked up there, that weren't a good place for me to be. But you to make that decision and change how inspiring that is, because we flip this on his head and look at where we're having this conversation now, but the things you've achieved since then, and gone from drug addiction to running your own business to,
thank you.
What an amazing journey, an amazing story to be able to turn that around. And I'm fascinated to learn about your mindset around that, like how you come out of that, and now here you are, and you're. I'm going to make a difference now. I'm going to go and help people. We'll come on to it a little bit later about your working with young adults and stuff like that. But to go from in that dark place where you were to, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to go and do that, and it's an incredible story. So talk to me a little bit about your mindset, like when you come out of that. Then so you've got past the drug addiction and you're clean and you're going, what, I'm going to turn my life around, I'm going to go and do X. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, fair. And thank you for all the questions as well. I really appreciate this chat.
Cool.
Two things there. Thing number one is you're definitely right, and I guarantee you a few people that are listening to this will be like, oh, I could do with a little hand. Always happy to have a chat, genuinely. If anyone wants to get in contact, not a problem. I'll always, even if you just want to let it out, it's surprising how lonely it can be. But there's so many people going through the same thing. And very quickly, slightly off topic, if you ever go to CA, which is Cocaine Anonymous, you would be surprised how many people that are there, where you're like, oh, hang on a sec, you're my postman, you're my policeman, honestly, trust me, you would not believe. Anyway, slightly off topic. Right, okay, so mindset-wise, here's one I absolutely love, because I think that if you make something easy enough for yourself, there's no excuse. You just cannot excuse it. If I said, an obvious one, you probably talked to people about before, but if I said, right, Sam, let's run a marathon tomorrow, we're both probably going to screw it up. Or we might make it, but, our legs are going to not be in the best fashion.
It's going to be tough.
It's not going to, the missus is going to be livid when we get home. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like, ring the bell. Please, darling. Just
for the next few days.
Exactly that, So what I did, I came up with a concept which is, and I'll explain it, but I came up with a concept which just makes things so easy that there's no excuse. That's my idea. So instead of tackling the mountain, you tackle the next foot, the next foot, the next foot, the next foot, and then you go, oh, I'm at the end of the mountain. It's weirdly enough, what a lot of that I notice, a lot of sort of marketing campaigns do, governments do, lots of different things like that, where they push an inch and then they stop when people moan, and then they push another inch, stop when people moan, push another inch, and then within not too long you're a mile away from where you started, but you feel like you've only been pushed an inch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, really does.
But you can obviously flip that really positively and use it as I want to run a marathon, but I only need to run 0.1 kilometers extra each day, and then within no time you're at the marathon, right? So the way I always explain it is, I always explain it like a house, and a house has to have a roof on it. It has to be finished, right? So otherwise the rain comes in and the snow comes in, especially this time of year, mate. You want a roof on your house, don't you? And so the idea is, I think of it as the foundations that you need to lay so that the house will stay strong. The bricks you need to lay to actually have a house, and the roof to put on the top. So the roof would be the execution. It could be a project, could be a relationship, could be health, like whatever you want to call it. That overall finished house is whatever the goal is you're going for. The roof is the execution, the bricks are the consistency, and the foundation's the mindset. So if you go into anything and you start doing it and you're not sort of all right up here, and might be really anxious about stuff, you might really unconfident, but just it's things that will make it a struggle for you to get past laying the first few bricks when it gets boring, because it inevitably does. Everyone gets gassed up on a brand new startup idea, don't they? But then like month 2 comes and you're like, I don't want to go back to this. This is hard now. So the idea is, your foundation is your mindset. So for me, and this is different for everyone, for me, there's a few things I do every day that if I don't do them, I don't feel accomplished, but B, I don't feel super, like as happy as I can do, and as sort of I don't get as much done. So some of those things include eating well, keeping fit and healthy. I have to exercise every day. If I don't exercise every day, something's not right there. It doesn't feel right for me. And again, this would be different for other people. Educate every day, learn something, work towards a goal. So that might be a business goal, it might be a relationship goal, something like that. Do something nice that's completely selfless. So for no other reason, you just do something good. You don't tell people about it, because then it becomes ego. But you do the sort of like, help someone out without them knowing it's you. Move back. And a few other things like that, and I do that every day, and inclusive of like listening to podcasts, which I like. That's been a game changer for me over the years, as I imagine it has yourself. Similar with audio books, basically things that will help me to be the best version of me possible and keep me off of that autopilot I was mentioning earlier. So that's my foundation. As soon as I feel like I've got to the point where I'm like, do you know what, I can take on this project even when it's going to get hard. I'll start laying bricks. So put the first brick down. I suppose if we said that let's use a marathon just because it's easy as a concept. So the first brick is that first 0.1 of a kilometre, and I run that and I go, cool, that's that brick down. And the next day I do 0.2 of a kilometre, and I just add on each day. They're tiny little things. They're inexcusable. So if I can run 0.1 of a kilometre, I can definitely run 0.2 of a kilometre the next day. Oh, excuse me. I did a little burp on air. Did you hear that? Go on, lad.
Mate, I already know one.
Oh, mate, stick an echo reverb on it. So, and I'll keep laying them, and I'll get to the point where I'm like, oh, hang on a sec. This has gone from a few little bricks to I can see the start of a wall here. And then you keep waking up and you keep showing up and doing your thing, and you keep laying bricks, and you get to the point where the marathon's there. You're ready for it, but you ain't got your roof on yet. And the roof is actually running the marathon. That's your execution. Sure. So I always think of it like that. So to very long-windedly answer your question, mate, I to do anything, I just make it inexcusably easy. That's all I do, because I'm not the quickest cat. I'm not, I try hard, but life often asks for more than that. So. I'll just make it easy. It might be anything. Like, if I wanted to ask someone out on a date, not now, but if I wanted to ask someone out on a date, instead of going like, right, I'm going to bowl over there in the middle of a really loud bar, try and come up with some line or some stupid thing, I'd be like, right, what can I do that will get me a step closer to that? Maybe a bad example, but and what could I do to get 2 steps closer to that? And I'll run through them, and then I'll execute each of them, put my roof on, and then I'll do the next one, put my roof on, and I'll keep doing it until the point where you're just like, oh, I'm standing right next to you, we've been having a conversation, you've already bought me a drink, like sweet as, do you know what I mean? So does that make sense?
It really does. Such a great way of looking at it as well. Like you said, simplifying that, I guess that journey and that mindset to like you said, whatever. And I guess that can be related to anything that you want to do in life, like you said, whether it's a relationship that you're trying to work on, but foundation. What is? I love the idea of setting your mindset. Ultimately, is the starting point, isn't it? You've got to have that right, because if you're not in the right headspace, you're not in the right mindset, then how do you get to that? To start building a foundation.
100%, man.
Because I'm a keen runner.
I was going to say, what's your view?
So for me, I'm a keen runner. So I love the idea of that, like, because I do running a marathon. I've run a couple of marathons,
nice.
and I like that. I guess to it's such a mindset thing. So a really good example for me around the mindset is that. So last year I wanted to run 1,000 kilometres.
That's cool, by the way.
I'd done 740, like, 'cause I was training for the marathon. So prior to June, I'd done 740. So I was nearly there. I was like, I could do 2,000 because I'm nearly there, blah, blah. Anyway, got COVID in June. And 2 weeks before COVID, I'd done 16 miles. Fine, no problem. Got COVID. Doing 5K was a killer. I was literally out of breath and really struggling. So I literally, over the next few months, I weren't running every day, once a week maybe, 5K even there, and I'd done a couple of 10Ks, but really struggled. Like, I was really... Anyway, got to the end of the year, December. I got up Boxing Day, and me and the missus went for... The mum and dad were down. Me and the missus went for a run, done a 5K, and I was like... I feel okay, this is not too bad. I looked at my Strava thing and I'd done 952 kilometres. So I had 5 days to do 48K. And I bear in mind, over 6 months, I've only done a couple of 10Ks. But I'm like, I can do it. And it's just that. So in my head, I said to myself, I can do 1,000 kilometres in a year. I can do it. All right, I've got to run 10K 5 days on the trot, which I haven't done in 6 months. But you do it and you just go out. And I did. By the end of that Friday, I'd sort of laid down. I went out I'd done that 5K and I'd done that 8K the next day. And I knew I had 10K over 4 days.
That's so cool,
and
man.
Like, but it's that. I love the way you look at it. For me, as a starting point for the new year, I finished on the New Year's Eve. I've done that last 10K and I come back and I went bang, 1,000 kilometres.
Done. Tick. Go on, lad.
And it's just one of them, like, I love the analogy with, like you say, with the marathon, but just starting that, like you said, mindset was right. Because if I was looking at it going, I've only done 2 10Ks in the last 6 months. I'm never going to do that. I'm not, and you go at that first one's a struggle. You go, I'll just go back. I'll do an extra one tomorrow. But I was like, right, I've got to do this. Bang, let's do it. And I love the way you look at it in that sense. It's such a great, and I'm sure it will help a lot of other people. I think just the way, like you said, I love the idea of just simplifying it. Look, foundation, mindset, get that right, and step by step, because it is those little, because we're so quick sometimes to go, like you said, like you alluded to earlier. You almost new business idea. You look at the thing. I'm going to build that. It's going to be great. Yeah. And then you go, right, let's jump in. And then a couple of bits down the line. Oh, that's a bit tricky. This is really hard now. And if you haven't set that out at the start, brilliant way of looking at it. Just quickly, I just want to say. So you come out of the. We just go through the journey. You come out of the drug addiction. You turn that mindset, and you sort of almost come up with this idea, and that's how you sort of move. And then so the book come from that, did it? And that's where that sort of come from in that sense.
Yeah. So weirdly enough, like I said, I was teaching for quite a long amount of time, and one thing I will give myself kudos for is I'm an all right teacher. I'm not too bad, because I figure out you don't have to be that clever. You just have to relate to people. So as long as it's a really obvious example, but say you've got 5 kids in a class or 5 people in a class, whatever, and one of them's really struggling with the thing you're explaining, and they're wearing a Star Wars T-shirt. Yeah. As long as you can go, right, okay, it was like that time that Obi-Wan Kenobi did this and blah blah blah, and they're like, right, I get the concept now. So you relate to them, and I've sort of figured this out, and it started to work. So when I was working at the college back in the day, before I sort of started doing the uni stuff and everything like that, it's quite funny because I won Teacher of the Year award, which I'm well proud about for the South East. And I got let go about 3 days later for not sticking to syllabus, which is hilarious because basically, but I got really good grades. My students got really good grades, and the way I always say this to my stepson is he'll come back from school some days and I'll be like, "You all right, buddy? How's it going? Do you have a good day?" It's all right. And I'm like, "Mate, that's on you. If it's all right, that's on you." Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, I know, but my teachers are rubbish." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Then you need to figure something out to use that time better, because if they're not going to do their thing." And on the flip side of that is, if your kid, I believe this so inherently, if your kid goes to school and isn't excited to go to school and isn't gassed as hell when they come out, then you're teaching badly. That's the job of a teacher, is to absolutely have someone where they don't understand that it's not like it's not work, it's not learning, it's like how can I just make this moment amazing, how can I do this? And everyone, and this is why I believe everyone always has that teacher they remember at school where they go, oh, it was Mr. whatever his name is, or Mrs. whatever her name is. And you say, well, okay, why did you like him? And it might have been, do you like geography? No, I hate geography, but I loved my geography teacher, and that made me love geography. Do you know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
So I think, when I was teaching, I got to the point where I sort of realised this and was like, right, cool, I can relate to people. That's okay. Yeah. So yeah, we got a load of kids really good grades, and in the background I was kind of this is definitely on me, but I was kind of ignoring the syllabus because, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but something I also struggle with is. So one of my PE teachers at high school was really overweight. My business teacher at high school had never run a business. I have a problem with that, right? That doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. That is like, are you actually serious? And to be like, oh, you'll never make it. And it's like, well, hold on a sec. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I've always been at the ilk of, at the time I was on tours and I was teaching a lot of music business and a lot of music performance. That made sense, and I think that's one of the reasons the students connected to what I was teaching is because I was doing the thing at the same time, right? Yeah. So right now, if someone came in and was like, right, Sam, can you teach me about podcasts? You're like, yes, boy, let's go, right? Do you know what I mean? So, at the same time, a lot of students can go to you can go somewhere to learn, and it just might not be related to you in the right way, and it might be that you're sort of it just is, or it's not part of your path, it's not part of your goal, it's not what you're doing, but. Without going too far off topic, I can't remember what you asked me.
We're just talking about. This is great because
that's drug brain, by the way.
This is great because I find this really fascinating about education, and I don't think I wasn't the most academic person at school. Failed my A levels, didn't go to university, but. And for me, there's a part of me that, and I've talked about this a couple of times recently on the podcast about education. I spoke to a guy who was the last episode of Series 1, Steve Salis. I don't know if you heard, but he was on the High Performance podcast, and he'd been in education, and he works as mindset growth with Premier League footballers, etc., etc. Fascinating guy, really talking about. He'd been in education a long time, and he said very similar things to you in regards to the structure and how it's done. Like, I just think. The way that people are tested and the way that, you're successful at school if you get an A star and you've got to do this test at the end of it, and that's how you're measured on success. Like, not everyone, like you've just alluded to, everyone absorbs content, absorbs information in different ways, and they will learn in different ways. It's down to the teacher to be. And what Steve mentioned at the time, he said, like, it's so frustrating, I guess, as a teacher, because that teacher's paid the same, who's brilliant, who's inspiring children every day, like you've been, to the guy down the road who's getting paid the same, like you said, maybe an overweight PE teacher or a business teacher who's not ever run a business, and they're getting paid exactly the same amount of money, and but just following this structure and this guy. I just think that there's things like emotional intelligence is not measured in within schools, like people skills, like me and you. We get on well with people. I get, like, that's how we're built. We love having a chat, and I think if someone said, "What's your skills?" One of my biggest things, I'd like to think I get on with most people. I can walk into a room and have a conversation and build a relationship. That's where I built networks over the course of the years, I suppose. But that's not measured in school, is it? Your skill set to build a relationship and what that looks like. And that's based, I guess, on emotional IQ or whatever that looks, not based on academic intelligence, and that's what we're not tested on. So I'm not saying that it's completely broken, the education system, but I do think that something's got to change somewhere.
It's an interesting, for me, it's a very interesting structure, the education system, because it does, right, so I without going too far off, I do sort of, my plan is to get out the rat race, however that looks. For me, that's financial freedom, and that's financial freedom for the reason of I actually don't care how much money I have. What I do care is about being able to go, right, I want to do this charity thing. I don't have the money to do it at the moment. That's my long-term goal.
Sure.
And the problem with the rat race is that if you're stuck in it, you're stuck in it. Whether that's that you're on universal credit and you can't get off of it, but you've lost a business last year because of COVID. It could be, there's a plethora of reasons that could be. But it seems funny to me, the structure of school is that kids are tested, which is, to me, is insane. Like I couldn't agree with you more. It's absolutely insane, because that doesn't work for everyone. Secondly, it just seems very funny that, my dog doesn't care what day of the week it is, right? But so why is school set up almost 9 to 5 Monday to Friday to then go through the motions to end up in a job that's 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, where spend your money on a Friday, go through the motions, get back to it, kind of thing. So when people talk about live for the weekend, to me it's bonkers. Live for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Choose to enjoy it, kind of thing. And it's like you're talking about with people skills. My kid's not super academic at all, as far as like he really struggles with anything that's like he gets very pressurized with tests. He really struggles with that. Get him on an Xbox and ask him to do the same mathematics or the same thing, and he's all over it. Again, relation. But he comes home and feels like he's failed all the time. It's why he's given up at school a while ago, and it's because he doesn't feel like he's done the right thing, and he doesn't feel good enough, and whatever he tries doesn't make sense. And you start talking to other parents, and they're like, "Yeah, man, my kid's actually really struggling with that, and that, but they're really good at, and you're like, well, why isn't that being nurtured? Why isn't, but the structure of it really, it weirds me out. And there's a lot of I don't know, where there's that sort of cyclical thing where you go to primary school, high school, you go to college, university, you get a teaching degree and go back and start teaching again. I'm not saying that's a bad thing whatsoever,
No.
but there's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of, I suppose, life experience that's potentially missing because you have to teach a specific syllabus. I think if it was like, right, Sam, come in, tell these kids something that you think is really important, something that's really helpful, blah blah blah. I believe that 8-9 times out of 10 they'll get more out of that session than they would going like, right, what are we doing today? Okay, right, we're here in the syllabus. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really do. I just I'm of that part. I know that for my kids, when of course, I think I never went to university. My wife did. I think they're great. I'm sure as an experience, great to go to university, and obviously you come out with a degree. I think, but for me, unless my kids come to me and say, "Dad, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor," and to get there, I need to go to university. That's part of the journey to get. Go to university, get your degree, and that's going to get you to where you want to go. Come to me and go, I don't really know what I want to do, but I think I'm going to do a degree in something, just because I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I would discourage that personally.
It's hard to dig it, isn't it? Yeah.
Because I'd go and travel the world, or go and work in another country, or come up with a business idea or something, or go out and just get an apprenticeship or work experience or something that is. Because if you don't know what you're doing, go and find out what you want.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? And that's, for me, I'd want to encourage that. And I think the good thing now, and something obviously I'm very passionate about, but entrepreneurship, I guess, is I look at it and go, it's encouraged now in schools a little bit more. There's lots of programs set up, and we done. I don't know if you saw on LinkedIn the other day, we done a thing that Sonny Cutting put together, Tiger's Pen, which was really cool. It's just a great little concept, but it was brilliant. You had these business students, who were putting together a business and pitching to us about their idea, and they thought of the concept and how it's going to come.
No, I haven't seen that, mate. No.
Oh, mate, it was fascinating, and I listened to these kids. Some of them were brilliant, and they, to be honest, they were all good. Some of course, they're sitting in front. There was 5 business owners there, and a couple of them give them a bit of a hard time, to be honest. But they was brilliant. They pitched these ideas. I love that. That's encouraged. And I've mentored a couple of times in schools and listened to a couple of, and like you saying about engagement. There was one of the things I went in, and again, it was like. The idea of me going into this, it was an entrepreneurial class, and they had to come up with a business idea and blah blah blah, and I went in just to give some advice, and I was talking about some bits, and there was a few lads who obviously football fans, but they were disengaged, like you're sort of sitting at the back and on the front. And at the time, one of the other businesses I was involved with, again seemed another lifetime, was 11's 11, which was a T-shirt company with a friend of mine. We printed a football club's best 11
Okay,
team
gotcha.
I ended up getting. I was just at the time I was pitching to Brighton Hove Albion, and I actually shared before I went in. I said, look, I'm now. Next week I'm going to pitch to Brighton Hove Albion, and these kids all of a sudden their ears pricked up and they was engaged, and when I went back a couple of weeks later, they was like, how did that pitch go? Because I sat with them and said, look, this is what I'm doing with the thing, and what do you think about this? And they all of a sudden they like felt part. When I went back in a couple of weeks later, I said, oh, we won the pitch and you're going to be able to buy the t-shirt in the shop soon. And
I bet they were gassy as hell.
It was great, you know.
That's
and you
awesome.
sort of think like. And I think it's so fascinating what you're saying about with you and your like. I can't believe that you then lost that job based on the fact that you've gone off the syllabus, but these kids were engaged with you and they wanted to.
Mate, so that's Ofsted, and that works in the exact same way as a lot of like corporate structures and things like that, where someone that has no idea about working on ground level or being in the trenches with everybody else comes in, has to tick a bunch of boxes for their employer and goes, right, okay, I'm gonna test you on this and this, and it's too black and white. And this is another reason, mate, why I absolutely love long play podcasts, because for instance, you read something in the news or a headline or something, and it's such a small piece. You hear someone talking for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, and you actually start to get to, I heard someone, I can't remember who it was now, but it really blew my mind. It was someone being interviewed. I literally can't remember who it was, but you know what an interview's like when it's like a quick sort of 5-minute interview on TV. And they were like, right, tell me about this thing. And he was like, hold on, you want me to explain in like 3 minutes what I've been studying for 25 years? Well, it's not going to work. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think, but that's so cool about that pitch, because you would have gassed those kids up, and then they stand to get so much more out of that, You
hope so. I think, like you say, like life experience is so, like we've alluded to. We talked about some failures, and we've talked about what that looks like, and both of our relationship with that and with failure. But that comes from experience. And I look at it, all them failures along my journey, and I'm sure similar with yourself, that you look at that, they are just experiences. That's how they. I look at the money maybe I lost during when I had to close the salon down, but you look at it and go, that 3 years was so invaluable. Like, it's a lot less than it would have been for a degree, and the amount I learned in those 3 years was probably, you know what I mean? So you
can't really get better experience than literally living the thing you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm not for one moment saying that universities and schools and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But there's definitely a lot to be. I don't know. There's too many different types of people for one size fits all, and it just it just doesn't work like that. I don't think.
I think what I find interesting, what you said as well about, like, you're right, the structure. I guess it's difficult. How do you change the structure of because kids potentially have got to be in school at them sort of hours, I guess. But has it got? I guess what I'm alluding to is, the world has changed so much with COVID, in the business world, that we are more flexible. Is it something that kids maybe sometimes learn better in the mornings in some places, and some learn better in the afternoon? Is there some form of flexibility? I don't know how that would work. I guess.
Well, we had, totes, mate. We had, so like I say, my stepson Cal, he's such a legend. He's got a bit of and he's never not smiled about this. He's always been decent, always been positive, and I look up to him so much. And so I met him when he was 6, and his dad lives in Norfolk. And every other weekend we drive up to Norfolk to take him to go and see his dad. Come back the weekends. That's a jaunt from down here. We've been doing that now for he's 14 in a couple of months. So we've been doing that 7 years now nearly. Every other weekend, X amount 100 miles. He sits in the car for like 7-8 hours. It's brutal. We always sit there singing, having a dance or whatever. Well, not a dance anymore, but and stuff like that. And when so he's a resilient little bugger. But when we started, when the first lockdown happened, and no kids could go to school, and like I said, he doesn't like school. He hasn't got that thing where he's like, right, this is for me. He feels alienated, I think. And we started homeschooling him, And so his mum was like, right, I'm going to teach him how to cook, how to clean. I'm going to teach him this, and this. And I was like, cool, I'll teach him a bit of business stuff. I'll teach him, we'll do some health and exercise stuff. Yeah. So every day for that, I think it was the first lockdown, I think it was, every day he'd wake up earlier than normal. Me and him would either go for a run or we'd do, 50, 100 burpees or something like that, little competitive thing we had going, stuff like that. Then his mum would be like, right, I'm teaching you how to cook an omelette and blah, blah, blah. So, it's things that you think are really stupid. Interestingly enough, and this is the one that blew my mind, was every day you'd be like, how was school? And he's like, I haven't been at school. Okay, what did you learn? Oh, well, okay, I can cook an omelette now, and I know how to do a plank, a side plank, and blah blah blah, and like I've got an idea for like maybe doing like a car washing thing with my friends and stuff like that. And you're like, there you go. And he was just gassed. He was lit the whole time. Gold. And I'm not suggesting that that's right for everyone either. No. But I do think that there's an element where you could hybrid that, where you're like, right, you go academically to school. I still don't really believe in testing. I don't think it's a good idea at all. But same with driving tests and stuff like that. I think ongoing is much better. But some kind of like, there's got to be a structure.
Of course.
Because otherwise you'll turn into an absolute reprobate. But at the same time, having that freedom to go like, what do you want to do, and how can we facilitate that? How can we help you out, little buddy? Like, do you know what I mean? I think
and just tapping in, because like you said, everyone's different. I know, like you said, it's difficult because you've got 30 kids in a class. Then you've got 30 different personalities and 30 different. You can't have 30 different ways of teaching. So I understand that, but I think trying to identify, I guess, where that student sits and how they learn best, and then maybe that's how them classrooms form from based on that. So some people learn better that way, some people learn better that way. That's where they're. I don't know where we're probably not going to change the education system in this podcast, but I find it fascinating and what I find interesting is a lot of people I speak to about it are of a similar mindset that something's got to change somewhere.
Well, brother, the thing that is crazy is that people send their kids to a place where they've never been out for a beer with the teacher. Do you know what I mean? They've never sat down and shot the breeze, and that kid is there for hours and hours and hours and years and years and years, and you don't really know what's going on. Behind closed doors. Are they trying hard? Are they putting effort in? Are they being taught well? And you get once every semester you get nowadays a quick Zoom call for 2 minutes with the teacher going, yeah, he's okay, and this and this and this and this, and and I couldn't agree with you more. I think definitely underfunded, understaffed, and it would be brilliant if every kid had one teacher per child. That would be a nice utopia. But I think there's a lot there that there's some decent foundations, but like to build on them and to get because they're as soppy as it sounds, they're the next generation, and they've grown up in a frigging awkward time. I know that growing up with the plague would have been sort of similarly or completely. That it's not like these crazy pandemics and world sort of atrocities have happened before, and I know but right now all I know is my kid's gone through a very weird time, not being able to see people, not being being sort of
weird knowing how that's going to affect their mindset. Like I said, mine are 6. They've gone from reception. Their first year in reception was, they had a few months off at home with me homeschooling. Do you know what I mean? And then for year 1 they were at home schooling with their mum, and you know what I mean. It's just a really different, really straight up, mate. We shall see. We'll see what the future are. We're going to move on. I wanted to talk. We've mentioned, like I said, we talked a bit earlier about relationship with failure and obviously what that sort of looks like. But I'm really keen as well to just talk to me a little bit about, I guess, your career highlights and achievements, and guess what, as we mentioned earlier about your definition, what does success looks like to you?
Okay, cool question. Highlights wise, and again, you're probably going to roll your eyes. I think it sounds really soppy, but I try and have little wins as opposed to massive big ones. Because if you have loads of little ones, you tend to, like I said earlier, you kind of end up having one massive one, but it's felt good the whole way. One of the guys I work with, John, who's also a dear friend of mine, he calls it a little bit of holiday. So he's like, I never go on holiday ever. I don't need to. He said I have a little bit of holiday every day. I work hard and then have a slice of holiday. It might be in the evening. I'll go out for a beer. It might be I'll treat myself, go to the gym, I'll take my missus out, whatever it is. But he's like, I want to enjoy every day. I want to have that thing every day, which I love. It's so cool. So highlights wise, I mean, things that have made me, I suppose highlights for myself would be things that have made me the happiest.
Yeah.
So, you know, taking on Cal was you know, that's just crazy. I couldn't put that into words. And my wife can't have kids now, so it's, you know, that's a really cool thing. That definitely feels like a constant highlight.
Yeah.
Pain in the butt as well, but constant highlight.
Mate, they're the best TV show, the kids.
Geezer, yeah, absolutely. But honestly, putting the book out and then doing the podcast version of the book felt really good, because it was a load of little things that turned into one big accomplishment. And the cool thing about the book is, because it's, like I said, it's I've really tried to maintain not being like I know better than you, I'm a guru, because it's just so not true. It's just here's an offering, take what you want from it. If any of it helps you, take it. If it doesn't, just bail, you know, go and find something else. That's cool. But what's really nice is, most days I'll get a message from somewhere, Australia or Canada or something like that, being like, I quit smoking because of your book, or do you know what I mean? Or I got out of I had one literally last week that was been in a really abusive relationship, couldn't get out of it, and she was like, I've left the guy, the book had a big part to play in it. And I was just like, what? My load of crap that I put down on paper? Nah. Which is really cool. So that's a nice thing. I think I don't know, man. Like I say, I try and do that scale thing where I try and make sure that when I go to bed at night, I can go, am I proud of myself? Did I do enough? Did I do the right things? Would my kid be proud of me if he knew what I'd done today? And often that's, I haven't hit that, you know. So highlights wise, I suppose, yes.
That's a great one with a book. I mean, look,
it's cool, man. It's totally cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
But I would really, whether it's a book or a podcast or whatever project it is, like creatively, I would really recommend. Like, I'm not an author at all. Like, I'm really not an author. If you read it, that, you know, it's quite funny, because I'm one of them as well. I don't really believe in perfection, so I think it's better to get something out there, you know, MVP kind of thing. Just it's there. At least it's there. I can figure it out later. Than it just not happening. I think a lot of people stop themselves from executing and putting the roof on the house. Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? After putting all the bricks down. But there's spelling mistakes, there's grammar mistakes. You know, some sentences are so waffly, as is my conversational skills, where it's just, you know, I read back, or if I've read bits back and been like, oh, geez, Lee, come on, mate, like, what are you doing?
Sorry to jump
no,
in,
not at all.
But what makes that more endearing then is that it just makes it more authentic, because that is you.
Well,
you put your
arguably, yeah.
You know what I mean? But that. Then people will warm to that and will.
It seems to be the way. Yeah. I mean, the feedback I've got and the reviews are lush. Like, you know, it made me really happy. And it's, you know, I said to my missus initially when I put it out, because it's petrifying doing something like that, and going, especially like with again, I'm not, you know, whether it's with the drug stuff or any other failures I've had or stupid stuff I've done. I'm never embarrassed to talk about it, because it's me, and that's this, a like it or lump it situation. Hopefully you can gain something from it. If you can't, again, you know, move on to something that you can work with. But I said to my missus before I put it out, I was like, I'm petrified about doing this. I'm going to frigging do it though. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's that sort of jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down type situation, you know. But yeah, I suppose, I don't know. What about you? What are your highlights?
Oh, mate,
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I guess, look, for me, just still being in business and still doing these type of things, and because
you have a very good rep, you know that. That's a hard thing to build, mate. That really is. It's
very kind. I guess. Look, I feel I'm very grateful for you know, that type of comment. But I do. I look back over ultimate successes as there been that many of it. When I look at the business thing, because the measure of success is financial, then I'd look at it and go, God, no, I've not been successful. But like I say, for me, I changed that narrative of success, and I looked around for me at 40, and I've gone, God, and I went to probably the darkest place I've been for me. I went to a low point, going, I'm not successful. What my kids got, what I don't provide enough for them. I want to give them more, and blah blah blah. And because it was all based around financial, I can't give them all them things. And I stopped and I went, what got me through that stage? Exercise was a big thing, but mainly I changed that narrative, and I looked around and I was like, I'm surrounded by people who love me and who I love, you know what I mean? And that for me, I've got an amazing wife, great kids, great relationship with mum and dad, brother's my best mate, lives in Australia. I've got mates who walk over hot coals for me, and I'd do the same for them, who I've known since I was, a kid, and people within the business community who I've come down here to Sussex who've just like I've built this amazing network of people who are not just business associates but actually really good friends, and I thought I've experienced love in all these different forms, and that for me I was like, actually, if I died tomorrow, I could sit back and go, you know what, I am successful.
That's a good place to be.
And that really changed my mindset around where I am I guess for me. And I've had some lovely experiences, done tournaments at the Amex, and I could go, like you said, these little wins where you go, I've done a tournament, we raised, 4 years on the trot and raised 40 odd grand for helping in the community. I've done stuff for, being made a trustee of Rocking Horse last year was an amazing thing for me.
That's very cool.
Because when Luca was in hospital, coming out of that and going, I'm going to do everything I can for Rocking Horse, and I've raised a few quid over the years, but then to be made a trustee and feel like I can maybe make a bit more of an impact, great, them little things. So yeah, there's a few bits and pieces, I guess, along the line, but definitely for me, I guess that part of 40 gang, I've experienced love. That's the highlight, and that's where I guess.
Well, brother, it's so easy to get complacent as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very easy to move through life like a day, a week, a month, a year, and just be like, oh, more problems, more things to deal with, more crap to navigate, and stuff like that. And it's that thing. It's like, what a beautiful thing to have just a friend. Or a roof over your head, or running water. I know it sounds soppy, but it's like all those old adages as well. There's so many of them, and they get piped around on like social media and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, if you actually stop and think about them, they're always like beautiful and really helpful. And but it's quite easy to be like throwaway adage that is a post that's going to get X amount of likes because my ego needs stroking, as opposed to just like, here's a wicked bit of advice. Stop and smell the roses. But if you actually think about that, that when was the last time you literally just walk along the street and you're like, do you know what, I'm going to stop and I'm going to smell them roses and I'm going to see it, and it always makes you feel good. It's just carving those times out.
Right. And it's interesting you say, because it's like almost like that validation that we need. Social media has been a massive part in that, hasn't it? That we put our lives out there, our best bits, our highlight reel, if you like, and we need that validation from people to go, oh, that means I'm okay, and if I haven't got them, why? What? And that makes you feel failure because you're reliant on that, and it's a shame that and we're probably all guilty of it. I'm probably still am from time to time. You're still guilty of them things, but it's not a nice narrative to have that, and that you don't need validation from other people. As long as you're okay with who you are, then the rest is good. So it was great. I love the fact that obviously with the success side of the book is a thing, and we mentioned obviously what a great takeaway for people with the mindset foundation, the building of bricks and the roof. But with the book, talk to me. Is there any other little hacks that you can talk about? That just maybe a couple of little bits from the book that you'll be able to help listeners about positive growth mindset?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ones that I use every day. Because the funny thing is, like, if I'm being really honest, a lot of that book now, because I'm halfway through writing the second one, which amazing. Is not completely different, but you live, you learn kind of thing. So there's a bunch of things I still completely believe in from the first book. I would still highly recommend your readers listen to it. Your listeners read it, sorry. But there's so much stuff in there where I'm like, oh mate, that's definitely, you wrote that 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? But some of the things I use every day, one of them is a little exercise I call Deathbed. It's really simple, and I do a sort of mini meditation on it. I'll sit there sort of eyes closed or calm, and I'll picture myself in a hospital bed. It sounds a bit dark and morbid, but it does really help, so roll with me. I'll picture myself in a hospital bed, and I'll have like my wife and my kids or my family or around me. And I'll think of the things I've done that day that I would not say to them if it was my last breath. Things like, oh man, I can't believe I got a frigging parking ticket. Like, literally veto. I don't need to think about that. Do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So I think about that quite often. If I'm having a rough day, which I inevitably do, as everyone, I'll get to the point where I just try and reality check myself and be like, hold on a sec, how important is this thing that your brain is telling you is important? Am I running off emotion or logic? Normally it's emotion. If someone shouts at you, it's hard not to go into like fight or flight mode.
Sure.
It's very hard to go, hold on a sec, do they need a hug? Maybe they need a hug. Maybe we should go for a beer. Maybe, or whatever it is, right? So I use that every day. The other one is that I do quite a lot, which I wouldn't say every day now, but when I was coming off the drugs, it was an everyday thing. It really helped. Was an exercise I called the scale, which is have a good hand and a bad hand. So I call it. So you'd have your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand. So for me, my right is my dominant hand. It's the one if someone chucks a ball, I will catch the ball with. The other one's my non-dominant hand. Feels awkward and weird if I'm doing certain things with it. So for instance, what I would do is it sounds well funny, but for me it's like visual aids and things that are easy. Help me accomplish stuff. So, so for instance, if I did the idea was that I've got a scale. At the end of the day, I need the good to outweigh the bad, and that's all I'm trying to do. Very simple game. Everyone likes, whether they say they are or not. I think most people are a little bit competitive, so you want to win the game, right? That's the idea. And what I would do is for every good action I had, I'd pick up a pen in my right hand where it feels natural and it's easy to write because that's what I've always wrote with, and I'll stick a little tick or a cross or whatever on my left hand. So I've got a visual aid there, right, cool, I've got a little tally chart of all the good things I've done. If I do something bad, and at the time that might have been calling up my dealer, that might have been, whatever stupid thing, I would take the same pen and I would draw the same tally on my right hand. But the funny thing here is that because I'm writing with my left hand, it feels weird. My non-dominant hand, it just doesn't feel right to do it. So there's a visual aid. There's also the kind of the action of it feeling awkward and not bizarre. And then there's the competitive side of, well, I don't want to go to bed looking like I've got the beginnings of leprosy on my hands anyway, but I also don't want the bad to outweigh the good. And then the last part of it that helps is that people go, mate, why have you got all those things on your hand? And you go, well, I'm trying to be a good person and this is my scale and blah blah blah. And they go, oh mate, so that one, so you're having a good day today, or oh Hannah said you need to do some good stuff. And then when you see if I was having a bad day and I'd got too many tallies on my bad hand, I'd see it and I'd be like, God damn it. Okay, right, now I need to do, say, 5 good things before I go to bed to get that scale back in order. It's really simple, like, kids exercise, but it's helped me a lot. I don't use that as much anymore, but I did for a long amount of time, and it really got me out of some sticky situations. And then I suppose the last one that's really pertinent, that I think sort of tends to get the best results, because all of these things I used to test out, it's probably quite bad, but I used to test out on my students at college. I would never tell them, we do certain little exercises and stuff like that. And one is really simple. A lot of people disagree with me that this works, but I haven't had one person that's disagreed with me try it and then not come back and go, okay, yeah, I get it now. Wow. It's just simple. It's called the switch. The idea is it's a switch. It's on or off. That's all it is. It's a really mental idea. And with whatever emotion you're feeling, you can just flip it. It's that simple. So I urge you to try this, right? So next time you're a bit angry, a bit ornery or sad or anxious or whatever, as long as you can get out of the autopilot thing and be mindful enough to go, I'm thinking, okay, how am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm angry, right? I'm just going to stop that. I'm in control. I'm going to stop it. That's done. It's absolutely done. That. So it's a funny one because people go, balls, that works. Mate, trust me. Honestly, next time you're livid or whatever it is, just be like, I'm going to choose not to be livid. I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm going to smile. I'm going to do something nice. I'm going to be selfless.
I love that because ultimately I think, again, this is back. And I think we spoke a little bit before. I listened to the High Performance podcast, but they talk a lot on that, and I've listened to their book as well. But they talk a lot about that, about responsibility and accountability, and you taking responsibility for that. And I think that's such a key message that ultimately we've got a choice, haven't we? I know sometimes, especially around mental health and stuff, like people don't necessarily always feel like that, and they do have a choice, I guess. But ultimately, if we can try and do these little things on a daily basis, like you say, when you're feeling like that, just go, because then maybe if you're doing that and you're upset, sad, and you turn it into a happy emotion, that you then move that along, and then each day you're getting that, so you don't plummet into a
100%. And don't get me wrong, mate, I'm not for one moment saying, if someone's extremely had an extremely sad situation, stuff like that, you're not just going to go, cool, that's gone. No, that's not what I'm saying whatsoever, and I'm not trying to be patronising or anything like that. Not at all. I mean very much so. Exactly what you just said. It's like tiny little things. Just built bulletproof in your mindset, really, because mate, everyone will try and screw you over. There's so much crap in the world that's constantly, at any point anything can happen. happen.
Yeah.
So when you have got control, I think take it as soon as you can control how you feel or what you're going to do. It's like the going to the gym thing. I believe, going back to school very quickly, I believe that exercise should be a daily thing. Stretching should be a daily thing. Meditation potentially should be a daily thing. You know, a lot of things like that. But exercise, I do not know one person. Find me someone that disagrees on this. I do not know one person that hasn't started exercising at one point in their life and gone, actually, this is really worthwhile. I do not know one person. I know loads of people that say that they wouldn't feel like that, and loads of people that won't, push themselves to feel like that. But again, it's what I was doing, because I've got a mailing list as well that sort of runs hand in hand with the podcast. And one of the things we do every now and again is we'll do like a little, a week's worth of health and fitness activities. But again, I always make them simple. So it will be like, right, 1 star jump. That's all we're doing today. 1 star jump. That's all you need to do. And I'll get people sending videos of them doing this 1 star jump. It's never 1. They'll do 10 or they'll do 20 or they'll do 30. It's just that first little bit in it. Just push the little bit. And then it doesn't need to be scary. It's a little hill instead of a mountain, and then cool, that's climbable. I can see the top of it. Do you know what I mean?
I love that, mate. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Before we're coming towards the end, so but just before we do, I want you. I know we sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier about your sort of work with young adults around sort of mental health and mindset entrepreneurship. Just that's obviously quite important. You tell me why and a little bit about that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, so I started a club. This is about 2 years ago now. A little group called the 100 Club. I know it's really cheesy. I know it's a cheesy word, but yeah, called the 100 Club with the idea that we give 100% effort and we do, blah blah blah. But the thing was, I noticed this when I was so I've actually of my time I've taught in primary schools, high schools, college, university, master's level, and then I've given sort of been invited to do talks at different sort of seminars and things like that. And there's one thing that I've noticed that's exactly the same throughout the majority of them is a lot of the time people don't know why they're there. So let's use student as an idea just because from education system. So most of the time they don't know why they're there and or they have got no want to be there. So I kind of realised that can't be the case, because if you're gonna turn up to something, right? You mentioned this earlier, 24 hours in the day, same as Usain Bolt, same as Theresa May, same as whoever, right? So with that time, if I didn't think that this is precious time to me, because it's as precious as every other second and moment I've had in my life. If I didn't think it was worth my while, worth your while, worth anyone's while for us to be sat here, then I would hope that we wouldn't be sat here. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, and this is something I struggle to believe in, is when people, how's your day? It's all right. What? Are you kidding me? Like, there's the potential for it to be absolutely phenomenal. What do you mean it's all right? That's on you, buddy. Like, I'm sorry, So with this in mind, I was noticing that the students, for instance, would turn up to a thing and just be sat there, like you said earlier, sat on their phones at the back of the class or whatever like that. And you're thinking, like, well, hang on a sec, well, this is my fault now because they're here. I need to stop them from doing that. I need to work out a way and navigate how that's the case. So, but because of the thing with having to stick to syllabus when you're teaching, having Ofsted in and things like that, I realised quite quickly that I probably wasn't built to be in that situation. However, I love educating, I love teaching, I love trying to learn myself. It's something I put time into every day. So I thought, do you know what, I can maybe do something sort of not off-piste, but like, out of school hours, extracurricular activity. And a lot of the students that I was teaching at the college, and when I've done talks for like different universities and stuff, I've sort of mentioned, how would you be interested in doing a thing where we sort of talk about the stuff they don't necessarily teach you at school, but could potentially be really important for your well-being, for your health, for your experience, for your for your future kind of thing. And if so, what kind of stuff would you like to talk about? And hands go up, and it's like, well, I'd really like to learn about marketing. Okay, cool. I'd really like to learn about entrepreneurship. Okay, cool. I'd really like to learn how to get fit and healthy. I'd like to learn how to ask a guy out on a date or a girl out on a date. I want to have a better relationship with my parents. And it's a barrage of things. But 9 times out of 10, and I can't speak for everyone because this is my experience, but a lot of those things I wasn't taught at school. I wasn't taught how to do my tax returns. I wasn't taught how to change a light bulb or a car tyre. Things that are, arguably not the most important things in the world, but still help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Life skills.
100. How to. My kid said to me. My kid said to me once. He was like, "Can I make myself a cheese toastie?" And I overheard him talking to his mum. Sorry, and how my missus said, yeah, of course. And he went, yeah, how do I get the cheese inside the bread? And I was just like, right, okay, there's some work here to do, buddy. Do you know what I mean? How do I get the cheese inside the bread? You're killing me, geezer. So I set up this thing, and fortunately, at the time, I was still running Beach Music. But I'd started setting up Reform in the background, financial brokerage, and I was working out of an office just above Barclays on North Street in town. It's a really nice office. It wasn't mine. I wish it was, but yeah, really, really lucky to be there. Yeah. And they had a really great space, kind of similar vibe to this, but for lecturing. So big screen up, so you could do your stuff. Really, really nice. Everyone had computers. Yeah. So we sort of came up with an idea of doing this thing called the 100 Club, where we just said, look, come if you want, turn up weekly, there's no charge, there's no nothing. We'll do once a week, and we'll literally read the room. If someone wants to learn something, we'll do like a hackathon, for instance. Like if one of the I say kids, they were like sort of 16 to 21 kind of thing. But if one of the people sort of said like, yeah, I've got this idea for a t-shirt drop shipping company, we go, right, cool, all on it, right? So hands up, who's great with marketing, who's great with social media, who's great with doing all the boring accountancy stuff that I can't do, definitely. Not boring, but you know what I mean. Who's good at that? And then we'd work out a way of doing that. There's things that we teach. It might be how to incorporate a company and going through that with them. It might be how to do charity work. It might be how to. We've done things with like local soup kitchens and needle exchanges, stuff like that. And then what happened was, with the first lockdown, we had to obviously stop having the face-to-faces. Sure. So we did a bunch of Zoom calls. But now the way that we do it is there's a bunch of them within a WhatsApp group. Quite a few, and then we'll put information in there. We'll sort of check in constantly, because especially at that age, man, like you probably have experienced this as well, is like there's so much distraction for these kids. Like I mean, it's that is a hard battlefield to get to the end of, because at any moment they might have an idea and they might start laying those first few bricks, and then out of nowhere it's like TikTok videos where there's like 10 seconds of video, and then the next one's flashing in your face, and then something's on the news, and then this is happening, and blah blah blah. And actually just to like calm and have that sort of like, right, I'm going to follow through, that's hard. So something I've noticed with people that are trying to learn something, whether that's through an education system or it's a project they're doing or a business they're running or whatever, relationship or whatever, something I've learned is that they need constant prodding. So for instance, and this is why I believe that like a personal trainer works. Trainer works. They're not making you do anything you can't do on your own, but they're there going, mate, come on.
Accountability.
100%.
Making you accountable.
100%. And it's those little check-ins. So you can do things like we do them with our work. We have a 9 o'clock call every morning. Half the time we don't need to be on the call. We've all got stuff to do, but it's just that quick check-in. Like, cool, everyone got everything they need. Does anyone need anything from me? Does anyone need anything from John or Rich or whatever? Blah blah blah. We talk between each other, and it's a quick 5-minute gas-up call. Get off the phone, get to work, do your thing. So I think it's I don't know where I'm going with this one.
I was just really interested to find out about that film. What a great little concept, because like you said, I think especially between 16 and 20, we're a bit lost. Look, at 16, up until I was 16, I was going to be a professional footballer. That was it, given. And I wasn't. Didn't obviously happen. Didn't become a professional footballer. You go, don't have a clue what I'm going to do. Stay on and do A-levels, because mates are doing that as well. No direction. Done history and art. I liked drawing. History, don't know. I liked the teacher. It was okay. So but wasn't engaged. Didn't do well. Failed, obviously, and come out of it but them 2 years, I'm like a bit lost. And then even up until I got into hairdressing to run a business, I guess. Up until then, I was just a bit lost, didn't know what direction I wanted to go in. And like I said, entrepreneurship not encouraged at that time as much. Like, I couldn't even spell it, let alone know what it was back then. You know what I mean? So I think like anyone had their own business was a rich guy and blah 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 down the line. So you sort of look at it and go, it was a different mindset. I think it's great to create a space like you have for people to come. Let's chew the fat, chuck some ideas about. And just because it's a creative space, isn't it, for people to be able to
absolutely, mate. And the thing is, it's a bit selfish, I suppose, but like I guarantee I probably learn more from those sessions than they do, because at the same time, is their fingers on the pulse way better than mine. Do you know what I mean? They know what's going on. If we marketing especially is like, if we're talking about those kind of things, they're, you know, some of the ideas they come out with, and you're like, might have nabbed that from my own company. Thank you very much.
100%. Oh, mate, I love that. That's really cool. Look, mate, we're sort of coming to the end. Got a couple of little questions to finish up with, but just before we go into those, I just finish off. Tell me, what does the future hold for Leabridges?
Oh, I'm going to keep slogging, mate. Like I said earlier, my idea, and thank you for being such a good host. Honestly, mate, I really appreciate awesome. Your time, Sam. You're a legend.
Mate,
future-wise, so my plan is I suppose a bit of a big one, but at the same time, for some people it would be small. For me, it's exactly what I want to do. So I want to build up Reform Financial. Like I said, set up a brokerage in a pandemic, which is like probably a really dumb idea. However, it's built resilience, so we've been gunning at it really hard, and then we've had an awesome start to this year, like really, really good.
Amazing.
So we source funds for different companies. We have a large panel of lenders, stuff like that. So my plan is I want to build that with an exit strategy over the next 5 years. I want to get to the point where it's funny, if you ask people what their number is, they either get really embarrassed or they don't know. But my number for me is it's circa about 4 or 5 mil. You know, and that for me will give me an exactly, give or take, enough to go, right, I can focus on charity work solely and nothing else. You know, a couple more books kind of thing, which are all within that arena. And it also means that you know, for my nearest and dearest, I've got that sort of certainty of like, right, we're okay. Do you know what I mean? Financial security. So that's the plan. So there's an exit strategy there. Whether I'd still want to make sure that I had a hand in the business as far as making sure it continues to be ethical and that it continues to, you know, one thing for us is just customer service. I think so many companies miss that nowadays, and just having that like decent, like, you know, genuinely caring and trying to do the right thing. So that's the plan with that. I do want, like I said, I'm halfway through the second book at the moment, which has taken me a lot longer than the first book, but I'm really busy with the company, and it's sort of coming secondary. I would. My missus is a dog trainer, and she's just opening. I don't want to say too much because she hasn't finalised it yet, but she's opening a dog training facility around Sussex.
Amazing.
Which is so cool. I'm not going to tell you the name because it's a really good name actually, but I'm going to hold that for her. But so I really want to sort of help her and support her with that.
Amazing.
But man, I just want to keep on keeping on. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy. Since for the last few years, I genuinely, it's not BS. It's not put on. It's like, it's happiness, but I work at it every day. Do you know what I mean? I get it a lot from people where they're like, bro, you're like buzzy all the time, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm working at that. That's not inherent. That's not. I know some people have, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, what about yourself,
mate? That's, you know what, that's awesome. But I will answer. But I just for me that you can tell, like we you know, we've met a couple of times, but spoke to obviously on LinkedIn and email and etc. But you just get there. It's infectious.
Thank you.
Know, it comes across, but and it's
my
great.
My missus says it's annoying.
No, I'm ultimately, you know, I try and surround myself with positive people and you know, have that positive, similar sort of mindset, and I think that's. And that rubs off, and it's great to be around that, and that, because that enthusiasm and that, you know, is, like I say, it's infectious and it makes people want to go. You know what I mean? So I think it's, mate, it's fascinating. And listen, I wish you every success with it. I think Reform will be amazing. So it's. Mate, it's been I knew it would be, because I remember when you reached out to me, you sent me bits about it, so I was just like, wow, what a fascinating journey, and it's been amazing, some of the stuff you've been able to share with us. And listen, honestly, thank you for being so open and honest.
Oh, Geezer, absolute pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Amazing. So, look, we're going to finish. I've done something a little bit different with this series. So, I've got one sort of quick fire question that I'm going to ask you, and then I actually asked my previous guest to write a question for you. Didn't know who it's going to be, and I'm going to ask you to do the same.
Oh, that's dope. I like that.
I must admit, I stole it from Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. He started doing it on it. I loved the guy, and he was awesome. And I was like, I've got to use this. It's so cool. So anyway, so the first one I'm going to ask you is just, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self before starting out on your business journey?
Oh, do you know, that's one of those good questions that I always find really hard to answer. Be yourself. I know it's really obvious. I spent a lot of time not being myself, worrying what people thought. Easier said than done, definitely. But it would be literally think. What's in your heart, what's in your soul. I always believe if you think about it and you're not running on autopilot, you always know if you're doing right or wrong. Always. You just have to check yourself on it. So I'd just be honest and true, and I'd vibe like that. Yeah.
Love that. Well, mate, look, this is
intrigued
from our previous guest.
That is a cool book, by the way, sir.
Yeah, it's my little diary.
That's nice. I like that.
Sort of right. This is a really good one, actually. If success was not measured financially, how would you measure it?
I suppose, like straight up, just happiness. Am I giving more than I'm taking? I think would be how I would answer that. I'm really happy when the funny thing is, right, so the selfless thing I was telling you about that I do every day. Yeah. It's one of them because it's very easy to turn that into a selfish thing and be like, mate, right, check out this lovely thing I did for this person or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
If you can really pull it out the bag and no one knows what you've done, and you go to bed at night and you're like, oh, do you know what? That's like, someone's happy with me. They don't know I did it. Nobody else knows. I'm not going to tell anyone. I really like that, and that makes me really happy. So that would be my answer.
Measured on happy. I love that.
Yeah.
Because the actual person I did speak to who did write that for me, we was talking about a similar thing, like how can, success be measured based on emotion, like through colours and bits and pieces like that, and measure it in a different way like that. So yes, it's interesting that was your response. So I will, before you go, you're going to get to write a question in your diary, which is going to be for my next guest. So mate, listen, we're gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much for your time, mate. It's been absolutely an awesome episode. I can't wait to share this with everyone because I think there's going to be so many takeaways, and your journey has been amazing. And listen, wish you every success, mate.
Thank you, Sam. You're an absolute legend, mate. Keep doing your thing as well because you've got a good thing here.
You're a top man. Thank you.
Geezer.
And that is a wrap, sir.